Welcome back to the twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hansen to talk the Memorial Day Stakes action. We'll also look ahead to Stephen Foster Preview Day at Churchill Downs. And James, there were a number of graded stakes on tap at Santa Anita this weekend, so let's focus in on the California circuit. What were your takeaways from the stakes action at Santa Anita?
Well, Anisette returned from a 5-month layoff with a nice win in the Grade 1 Gamely, and Mr. Fisk comfortably proved best in the Grade 2 Hollywood Gold Cup. But I'm going to focus upon Shoemaker Mile winner Johannes. Now, I just love this 4-year-old colt's potential moving forward off of this performance. Johannes is a horse that switched to turf in the fall of 2022, reeled off 3 straight wins, including a pair of listed stakes before shipping for the 2023 American Turf on last year's Kentucky Derby Day undercard, and he exited a troubled 5th that day with a season-ending injury. And he came back, didn't come back again for 11 months, returned in the April 4th American at Santa Anita, and just displayed a dynamic turn of foot to prove best by about 2 lengths that day. Now, he had to step up off of that Grade 2 win and face a much deeper cast Monday in the Grade 1 Shoemaker Mile. And I thought that I just thought he really ran a big race. He basically launched his move on the far turn, reeled in Fantastic again in upper stretch, forced ahead a short lead, and that rival fought him all the way to the wire. He won by about a half length, Johannes did. And I think that hard race, that courageous, tough fought win will only benefit this up and coming 4-year-old son of Nyquist moving forward. I think he's developed into an exciting presence in the U.S. Mile Turf Division. And I expect to see Johannes keep progressing off of the Shoemaker Mile for Tim Yaktine moving forward. Vance, what were your takeaways from Santa Anita Stakes?
Well, I agree with you that Johannes's performance in the Shoemaker was the standout one there this weekend, and arguably the most meaningful from a broader perspective. As you said, he's a legitimate Breeders' Cup Mile threat, and with the race being held at Del Mar later this fall, he definitely has the opportunity and potential to become the leading local hope for that race. The caveat there is you have to go back 20 years to Singletary, who won the 2004 race at Lone Star Park to find a Southern California-based winner of the Breeders' Cup Mile. And it was actually a race the Southern California horses kind of dominated at the turn of the century. You had War Chant winning at Churchill Downs in 2000, Val Royal at Belmont in 2001, and then, as I said, Singletary in 2004. But as the quality of the racing in Southern California, in particular the grass racing, has declined over the last 20 years, they simply have not had a horse good enough to win the Breeders' Cup Mile against star-studded international fields, and occasionally some East Coast-based horses and Kentucky-based horses have won as well. So that's the one caveat I have with Johannes moving forward, but he does look really good going forward, as you said. The other horse I'd bring up from Santa Anita over the weekend is Adair Manor, the older mare trained by Bob Baffert, who enjoyed a victory lap of sorts, winning the Santa Margarita on Sunday. The Breeders' Cup obviously is also in her backyard this year at Del Mar, and she does appear to have improved a little bit this year. I know she's been dominating some very small and weak fields in Southern California races, but she did win the Apple Blossom at Oaklawn in April very impressively. The field probably wasn't up to Apple Blossom standards, but she did it very impressively. And this was just another walk in the park for her in the Santa Margarita on Sunday. And that's the other caveat going forward. You have to wonder how well she's going to stack up against some of the better older fillies and mares from the East Coast that will be coming out to Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup in November, if she doesn't face some more formidable competition in the interim. So Johannes and Adair Manor, to wrap things up, looked really good over the weekend, but there are some causes for concern going forward, Ashley.
I will add about Adair Manor. Last year, I think she was just sort of coming along when she won the Santa Margarita. and then got a little bit of time off, and Baffert just made the decision to keep her in Southern California all the rest of the year through the Breeders' Cup. But this year, I think she's like more advanced, like you said, Vance. I thought her Apple Blossom was her best performance yet. I expect her to ship to Saratoga for a Grade 1 stake this summer. I think that's going to be the natural path for her, given that she shipped for the Apple Blossom this spring. And I don't think she's just going to continue to beat up on those same fields. I would hope not, Ashley.
Well, much like Adair Manor, the Chosen Brawn also didn't have to beat many rivals, but did extend his win streak. I almost was going to talk about him, but, didn't have a lot of competition. But he does tie into a horse we're going to talk about a little bit later, another top sprinter in the country, and the two might meet at the Breeders' Cup Sprint. But I'm going to focus on Anisette, who made her 4-year-old debut over the weekend and won the Gamely Stakes in Gamely fashion, beating Irish-bred Olivia Meralda by half a length. Now, Anisette is a multiple graded stakes winner, now riding a 2-win streak, and she was able to win off a long layoff of more than 5 months and was also the 126-pound highweight in this field. So conditions weren't necessarily in her favor, but she was able to get a pretty big win. She wasn't the favorite in this field. Ruby Nell was the favorite, who had a pretty significant lead early in this race, but Anisette ran her down and was able to win this race with a 95 brisnet speed figure, improving on her 88 last out. And Umberto Rispoli was aboard, so also got a win with Ioannis and won this race as well. So pretty big day for him at Santa Anita.
Now, and I'll say Anisette, I mean, she's got a chance to keep advancing at age 4. And that Olivia Murata, she had run a troubled second in her U.S. debut. I thought that was that's a mare that might have a little bit of a future in the filly mare turf ranks for Bill Walden.
Yeah. Well, there were some other stakes across the country and other just interesting results that we saw from Memorial Day weekend. So, Vance, what else caught your eye?
Well, I'd bring up the 4-year-old filly Clearly Unhinged, who ran in Monday's winning colors at Churchill Downs. And she prompted a really hot pace in this 6-furlong sprint. The first quarter went in just a shade over 21 seconds, but she took command relatively early in the race and opened up a big lead in the stretch, and then saw it whittled down to a still comfortable length and a half at the finish. And she seemed to finish with enough left in the tank. And she's now 2 for 2 since her private acquisition and transfer to trainer Steve Asmussen. Last year, she was with trainer Michael McCarthy, based in Southern California. She placed 3 times in graded company, including 2 grade 1s. She narrowly lost the test stakes at Saratoga last summer, and then later placed in the La Brea. Also finished second in the Chillingworth at Santa Anita against older fillies and mares. She wasn't quite ready for prime time in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint at Santa Anita last fall, but she wasn't beaten by a whole lot in that race, just simply outclassed. I think she's a much better filly this year. And obviously, Steve Asmussen knows a thing or two about developing some top-class sprinters. So she's going to get a sterner test moving to Saratoga this summer. She's going to possibly running in the honorable miss, possibly the grade 1 ballerina going 7 furlongs. We'll see how well she can stretch that speed, but I really wouldn't put it past her running some of these better fields off their feet, James.
Yeah, and I'll just say, I mean, what a savvy private purchase. You referenced that she was unplaced in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, 3rd in the La Brea, and she's really just coming on as a 4-year-old. That had to be a tough loss for the Michael McCarthy when she was sold. I'm going to mention 3 maiden winners. I'll try to get through them quickly from over the weekend that caught my eye. I'm going to just mention them in chronological order, starting on Saturday in Pride's Crossing and race 6 at Churchill Downs on Saturday. A $1.3 million daughter of Quality Road for Larry Best and Paulo Lobo. She showed good speed from the start. She's out of a mare by Galileo, who won at 1.25 miles on turf, but there's some speed in her immediate female family and Just a Warrior and others. and she's got some quickness. She showed good speed, like I said, from the start of the 7 furlong test, took the lead off the far turn and blew him away, got an 85 speed rating and looked good doing so. Pride's Crossing. On Monday, world record, took it absolutely 2 rivals. In his career debut at Keeneland, he finished a little bit of a troubled third, got beat a half length. But boy, oh boy, he was tied on. And you can see he is a well-built, muscular, athletic-looking son of gun runner. Rudolph Brissett trains him. I thought he was brilliant in this race. 95 speed rating. It's going to hit the 3-year-old stakes ranks this summer. World record. You have a name like world record, you better be good. And he looks pretty promising right now. And then, of course, on Monday, I'll mention Flightline's half-brother. He made his anticipated career debut, Eagles Flight. And he was in a 6 furlong maiden test. He broke eighth of 9 runners, was a couple lengths back in 7th at the first call, and then made his move on the far turn, took over in the stretch, and won pretty comfortably by about 2 3/4 lengths. That race came back with a 91 speed rating. Same connections at Flightline, same owners. John Sadler trains. You know, he's going to take his time with Eagles Flight. He gave Flightline plenty of time between starts. Look for him to come back. He'll probably shop for an allowance at Del Mar. Not going to be any big hurry, I would think, Ashley, with those Eagles Flight moving forward off that win on Monday.
Yeah, you picked 3 very impressive performances, and I'll stick with Churchill on Monday on Memorial Day. I was able to talk to trainer Whit Beckman ahead of a win for Stowaway, which was kind of a surprise. Actually, right after I interviewed him in the paddock, Stowaway went up to 17-1. This is a horse that was recently acquired by Whit Beckman's barn and had been running on all weather and running at a longer distances, cutting back to a mile for this dirt allowance at Churchill. And I guess we'll go ahead and play some of the video about what Whit Beckman was looking at here in this spot, since we were able to catch him just before the race.
Well, he's been on the poly for the majority of his career. He's had one subpar dirt start, which he got a year off after. So he's been training fantastic on dirt. Probably does want to go a little longer, but off the layoff, just want to kind of give him a little bit of a shorter race, just to kind of get him back on the, back on track.
Also removing blinkers. So what made you remove the equipment?
I mean, he's never trained to me like a horse that was, cheating me or doing anything that required blinkers. So just kind of fresh in the new stable, getting things turned around. We'll just start from square one and build from.
And I think we'll see the finish here. So he was bet down to 7-1 right at post time. I thought it was going to get better odds at 17-1 at one point, but Stowaway, sure enough, was able to run down the favorite Shopper's Revenge for Steve Asmussen and got a win, which was kind of unexpected considering he hadn't raced at a mile. He had debuted at 6 furlongs in his career debut and then raced a mile and 70 or farther after that, and was mostly on all weather except for one dirt start for Mark Casse that was pretty distant 8th. So looks like Whit Beckman knew the right winning formula for this horse. So we'll see what happens next, but very cool to see. And Martin Garcia was aboard. He was doing really well at Churchill. So a whole bunch of things, the blinkers removed, cutting back in distance, going back to dirt, working well for Stowaway now.
Hey, I mean, you're in the paddock, like doping out the interviews with these trainers that got like long shot winners. I hope you had some money on Stowaway. That was a good get.
Good.
And I like Whit Beckman. He's a good up and coming trainer, and I'm intrigued by Anna Marie and the Belmont Stakes.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have Stephen Foster Preview Day at Churchill on Saturday, and then we have some other exciting action overseas. So, James, what are you most looking forward to watching this weekend?
Well, the Grade 3 blame is the preview race for the Stephen Foster, the $1 million Stephen Foster on the closing Saturday of Churchill's spring meet. And it's going to mark the return for Tapit Trice. Tapit Trice was the top Kentucky Derby contender last year. He won the Bluegrass, was bet down, I think, as the second choice in the Kentucky Derby. Had a troubled trip and didn't run well that day. Only made a couple more starts, and after he ran third in the Travers, he headed to the sidelines for Todd Pletcher. He's been training pretty steadily all year, all spring, first in South Florida and now in Kentucky. And he was scheduled to come back on the Ali Sheba. That track came up sloppy, so they scratched him and they redirected him to the blame. And he's going to take some money. He's going to have a chance to come back and run well as a 4-year-old, you would think. Did always have trouble getting out of the gate last year, though, Tepa Trice. You're going to have in that race a Trademark, last year's Clark handicap winner. He likes a fast track. He didn't run well on soft turf. He didn't handle the slop, and now he's Sheba. He's going to be a rebound candidate in the blame. But the horse I'm most interested in seeing is Dreamlike. Dreamlike is a colt that last year was running in the stakes as a maiden. He eventually broke his maiden at Saratoga, ran third in the Pennsylvania Derby. Came back this year in this allowance. He's odds on. Cagliostro got the jump on him on a speed favoring track going a mile and a 16th. Dreamlike's the 3 trying to run him down. He gets beat ahead. Hopefully bettors will take note of that and be like, he's not that good, because I expect him to move forward significantly off that race, run a much better race at a mile and an eighth on Saturday in the Blame Stakes. I'm intrigued by Dreamlike in that race, Vance. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
Well, on the Stephen Foster preview card, I've got 2 names circled. Skelly is making a rare appearance outside of Oaklawn, and he should be a heavy favorite in the Aristides Stakes, a sprint race for Steve Asmussen. This horse has been running pretty much exclusively at Oaklawn and Lone Star the last couple of seasons, but now he's on the Churchill Downs track, where I assume he's going to be using this as kind of a prep race for possibly a stab at the Vanderbilt at Saratoga this summer. And the other one I've got circled is Kijara, who was second choice, I believe, in the La Troyenne on Derby weekend, but she really ran too bad to be true race in that race. She was virtually eased in there, seemed not to handle the sloppy track, but last year this filly went on a really nice win streak, winning a couple of stakes at Churchill, including the Falls City and also the Gazelle up at Aqueduct. So this filly looked like one that was very promising last year, and it's too early to write her off of a poor performance earlier this month. Otherwise, my main focus for this weekend will be on the classic races in England and France. We've got the original versions of the Oaks and Derby. That's how you say it over in England. That'll be at Epsom, and those races will be on Friday and Saturday. And then on Sunday, we've got the Prix du Jockey Club, which is the French Derby, and that's at Chantilly. And for the first time, for betting on the races in France, including the French Derby, is available to twinspires account holders. The French Derby is usually at both the races at Epsom and at Chantilly are very compelling. But French Derby, I think, traditionally is a very compelling and often wide open race, and it should be a great betting affair. So I'll be offering some opinions for sure on the Epsom races later this week on the twinspires Edge. The final Oaks field will be drawn Wednesday morning. I should have an Oaks blog out later that day, and then my Derby opinions and insight will be available on Friday, Ashley.
Yeah, as you said it too, we're offering French racing at twinspires, so adding that to harness and thoroughbred racing. So just keep
that French racing, like races like the French Derby. We've seen Breeders' Cup turf horses for sure come out of those races. Those races are valuable handicapping for this fall potentially.
And Vance, just like you, Skelly is a name I have circled. I've been watching this horse for a while. Excited to see him at Churchill. He broke his maiden at Churchill way back in 2022 and then finished second in an allowance before heading over to Oaklawn, and then eventually went on a 7-win streak before he finished second in the Riyadh Dirt Sprint, and now has a 2-win streak again at Oaklawn. But we'll see how he does at Churchill. I think it'll probably be a pretty strong performance. His Brisnet Prime Power rating is 12 points higher than the next closest horse, Tejano Twist, who he's beaten, I think, 3 times at Oaklawn now. So really, Skelly should be top of the class in this field. But we'll see what happens now that he's shipping to a new track again. But I also wanted to mention in the Audubon Stakes, the finale on Saturday, I'm interested in see what happens in the stakes debut of Cameo Performance, who is an Oscar Performance colt, was beaten a neck on debut overseas at Ireland on a synthetic track. And then in his turf debut for Brendan Walsh, he got up to win by more than a length at a Keeneland maiden special weight. So I'm not sure how he will measure up to this competition. We've got Nomos for Todd Pletcher in here, a couple other class droppers as well. So we'll see what happens with this Oscar Performance colt. But he looked pretty strong on debut. He needs to increase that brisnet speed figure, but he's got some good works at Churchill too. So I'm definitely excited to see how he performs in his stakes debut here.
I'd see Skelly a little bit. I mean, it's different circumstances, but a little bit like in the same vein as a Dare Manor, where he was good last year at Oaklawn, but wasn't ready for prime time per se. But he's a better horse this year, it looks like. And yeah, I mean, this is just step one, trying to win a graded stake at Churchill before going to New York and aiming for all the heavy hitters there this summer.
All right, well, that's all the time we have for the Racing Roundtable. We'll be back next Tuesday. And of course, check out our Twin Spires jury on Thursday for our best bets and fades. We'll see you next time.